Hey guys, Kevin Fishbane
Arthur Arkish, Pro Football Weekly. Hope everyone's doing well.
here from beautiful Mobile, Alabama, in our lovely hotel suite. We have been. We're at the Senior Bowl. We finished our first day yesterday, catching in the North and South team practices, and here to take any questions you got about some of the prospects. I imagine mostly everyone wants to know about the quarterbacks, Arthur. So we probably should start with that for our first sets of viewers, kind of thinking about who some of the top quarterbacks were. Mm-hmm. I'll start with who the top quarterbacks weren't. Mm-hmm. The South team's group of quarterbacks: Davis Webb from Cal, Josh Dobbs from Tennessee, Antonio Pipkin from Tiffin University of Michigan. All three of them threw pretty damn good ball. A lot of zip, beautiful deep ball. Accuracy, not so much. So I'm curious to see how they respond in Wednesday and Thursday's practices. Someone's going to look at those guys, especially Webb, who's 6'5", and think they got a product there. You got a chance to talk to him last night too, didn't you?
Yep, impressive guy. Comes from Cal, transferred there after an injury, so I believe he was only a one-year starter there. But like Kevin said, he is statuesque in the pocket, and that actually is kind of a negative connotation. I just mean he's tall. He has a big presence and a big arm, as Kevin said. And I think we should preface all the quarterback talk by saying that expectations were very much tempered coming into the week in Mobile. The top guys aren't here. Deshaun Watson obviously passed a couple underclassmen in Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Kaiser. So these guys were viewed to be projects, and so far that has been the case. Now on the north side, we had the guy I like actually out of Pitt, Nate, is it Peterman? I believe?
Peterman, yeah.
Nate Peterman, and he so far has also been the most impressive guy for me, not only I think on the field, but also in the interview room. Just comes off extremely sharp. He seems to have those intangibles that I think teams are looking for, and that's easier said than to actually identify. But impressed by what I've seen in him. Some of the other guys include C.J. Beathard. Haven't had a chance to talk to him a ton yet, but we'll look forward to doing that. The third quarterback, whose name is escaping me right now, and I wouldn't be able to pronounce it if I did know it, so now I do. Colorado's Sifo Liufau. Lufau.
That'll do.
And the biggest hands here, and we remember last year from the whole Jared Goff, stuff going on at the combine, that's a big deal in some people's minds. It didn't translate on the field. He threw a terrible interception. He seemed to have a hard time throwing it outside the numbers from an arm strength perspective. So we'll see. Again, it's early. The guys were just getting their feet under them on the first day, but the quarterbacks is a mixed bag, and I think that's what we anticipated.
You would think that Zuckerberg would be able to let us go horizontal here with the phone, so sorry about that, but blame Facebook. But no, this is awesome that we get to do this. And so if you got any questions about some of the prospects, feel free to ask now that we are upright, and answering your questions about the Senior Bowl. I think the thing about this, as you mentioned, obviously Kaiser, Watson, Trubisky, Pat Mahomes, not here. Yep. And you get that with a lot of positions. Safeties, there's no Malik Hooker, there's no Jamal Adams, there's no, so the top safety's not here, the top corners aren't here. But overall, I think probably offensive line, the fact that tackle and guard aren't the quote-unquote deep positions in the draft, maybe the first guys taken in this draft in the offensive line are going to be playing here at the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, any of those kind of offensive linemen stand out to you in the first day?
We'll see. They were in shorts and shells on the first day, so we're going to get a better idea in terms of physicality as they get these guys into it. There wasn't really any live hitting either, so we'll know more as the week progresses. Again, we've only seen one practice, and it was undoubtedly the lightest of the week. I know the big name is Forrest Lamp out of Western Kentucky, and he didn't measure, I don't believe, to what people were expecting. Shorter arms, I know, than anticipated. I've only got the projections here. I don't know what the actual official weigh-in was, but I know it was a little bit disappointing.
What are we looking for?
Forrest Lamp of Western Kentucky.
Lamp, Western Kentucky. I got your weigh-in here for you. Forrest Lamp, Western Kentucky, 6'3" 3/4". 305 pounds, 10 7/8 inch hands, 31 1/8 inch arms. Not the longest arms there.
Right.
78-inch wingspan. Same as me, pretty much.
So that those projections, those measurements to me sound very much like an interior player, and I think you saw Forrest Lamp, or at least I saw Forrest Lamp, look more comfortable, more natural, and more dominant on the inside. He started the day at left tackle and ended up at right guard. So it looks to me like his home in the NFL is going to be along the inside, but we'll have to wait and see, obviously, how teams sort of measure that.
Got our question here from, I think it's John Sally. Sally, doesn't really matter what the last name is. He wants to know who we're keeping an eye on. I know, John, I'm just giving you a hard time for today. You mentioned the quarterbacks. We want to see how they do today. Two guys that stood out to me, wide receivers on the South team. Ryan Switzer, North Carolina, I thought was the best receiver on the team. Extremely quick in and out of his breaks. Great route runner, great hands, and then a different kind of receiver. Switzer's going to be an outside guy, but the wide receiver from Grambling, Chad Williams, big dude, number 84 on your scorebooks and your hearts on the field. He also looked pretty good. And again, the South quarterbacks weren't throwing the ball well. So anytime a South receiver made a catch, it sometimes was a pretty impressive catch. So those are some of the guys I'll be looking at today. Anybody that you're going to be kind of scoping out?
Yeah, let's stick at the wide receiver position for a minute, and a couple guys we're going to see if they're able to build on what they did yesterday. I think the guy who kind of stole the show a little bit, there were actually two of them. Zay Jones of East Carolina.
Fast,
yes,
dude.
and was beating
East Carolina, not Eastern Carolina.
And I apologize if the reader happens to be listening. Yes, I did write Eastern Carolina in my story. It has since been edited, and that's my bad. But he stood out for all the right reasons, as Kevin alluded to, very fast, and was beating some pretty impressive corners, including Desmond King of Iowa, who's going to be maybe on the first round radar, if not an early second day pick, I believe, and he just got toasted on a go route by Zay Jones, and he had a few of those. The other guy I'm not really as familiar with coming into the weekend, Cooper Kupp of Eastern Washington. And by the way, these guys both measured in, I think, close to 6'2". I know Zay Jones was at 6'2" to match that speed. Kupp, we can check on that. But
Cooper Kupp, Eastern Washington, 6'1.5", 198.
Passable. That'll work. He's not going to be your typical big-bodied type wide receiver, but that's not what he's supposed to be anyway. A savvy guy,
and he put up video game numbers. It was at Eastern Washington. They do play on a red field up there, I believe. Like, it's literally red. But he put up huge numbers. This question, when we fit in the frame better if we did this landscape, for those of you who came here late, we tried to go landscape and it didn't work. Talk to Mark Zuckerberg. You gotta go vertical for these Facebook Live videos. But we still like doing it. We want to bring you guys the goods here from Mobile, Alabama. And yes, you mentioned the receivers. Running back position, really not a great group of backs in terms of scouting reports. By the way, go check out ProFootballWeekly.com and stay tuned there. We're going to have our draft magazine coming out next month by Greg Gabriel. But there was one running back that caught your eye.
Two, yeah, one from each team. San Diego State's Donnell Pumphrey. Size is going to be a problem. He weighed in at like under 170 pounds. That's an immediate red flag. I think he's like 5'10", 169 or something. So he's going to have some work to do there. But just in terms of quickness, you can see his ability to get isolated on linebackers and just really embarrass guys potentially. He's a space player with some serious juice. And there's a role for those guys in the NFL. If you look at last year, the Texans took Tyler Ervin out of San Jose State. I believe he's a little bit bigger, but the more natural comp, I think, is going to be Darren Sproles. And obviously that's pretty high praise for Donnell Pumphrey, but he impressed me quite a bit. On the other squad, I believe, was Toledo's Akeem Hunt. Didn't note him quite as much, but he did look very natural catching passes out of the backfield and looked like he has a little bit of juice too and a little bit more size, I think. So another guy that caught my eye. And as Kevin said, the running backs here don't really jump out, and we'll tell you what else we see throughout the week. But of course, the overall crop of running backs is potentially very special when you add in Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, among others. So it's going to be an interesting year in the draft for running backs.
We got a comment here, not a question. We're hoping for more questions. People who rate players are a joke. They are never right, never. Well, luckily, we're not rating players.
Right.
And that's a pretty blanket statement because I think, like, once in a while someone's right about their player rating, but that's just my humble opinion. Defensive side of the ball, again.
Well, let's just stick with that for 1 second, since these guys are such jokes. I can just tell you that at Pro Football Weekly, our rankings, or Greg Gabriel's rankings, are very highly valued, not only among our readers, but our readers include many NFL teams. So maybe the joke is on them too, because again, our guy is a professional scout. He's been doing this for 30 years, so that's okay. Each to each their own.
And then looking at the defensive side of the ball now, let's talk. Again, they weren't in full pads yesterday, so we didn't see a ton of hitting, ton of coverage stuff. Couple defensive linemen actually on the South team kind of caught my eye a little bit. Let me just make sure I double check and make sure I get their names right here. Deshaun, where are you at? From Texas A&M. Defensive lineman.
Number 93, I believe. Yep.
In your playbooks and in your hearts. Deshaun Hall. That dude, back-to-back.
Sorry, number 90.
Back-to-back spin. He did a spin move on the second move, kind of like a swim club move on the first move in one-on-one drills. That kind of stood out to me. Was pretty impressive. And again, it's just early. We're only seeing a few one-on-ones, but anytime a guy flashes, we're gonna note it. We're gonna write it down. We're gonna let you know because that's kind of notable for some of these guys. Any defensive guys for you, Arthur?
Yep, I wrote in the North notebook last night. I led with Iowa defensive tackle Jaleel Johnson, a stud. He had, I thought, one of the best days out of anyone yesterday, and he's got really good size. I think he came in about 6'4", 310, showed a really nice first step. Had the biggest hit of the day, actually, when he met Michigan running back, I believe it's Devion Smith, who's another big guy, a workhorse type back, in the backfield for, again, a massive collision. I asked him about it last night. He says coaches are praising him not only for that first step, but his violent playing style. You hear that a lot from these guys. That's certainly an endearing term here in Mobile. And Jaleel Johnson doing well for himself, again, out of Iowa, and also a local Chicago kid. Went to Montini Catholic and lived in Lombard for a little bit. So a good start for him. Also noticed an edge rusher out of Ohio, actually. Let's see what his name is. Number 93, Terrell Basham, 6'4", 262. Those are the estimates, but showed some flexibility off the edge, got home for one would-be sack on Nate Peterman, and looked pretty good and pretty natural turning the corner. So definitely want to try and get a closer look at Ryan Anderson out of Alabama. I know he's one of the big names here, and honestly just didn't get a chance to check him out too much yesterday. But I think today will be a little bit more defensive centric day as the hitting and as the intensity picks up a little bit.
I got a question here. How much of an advantage is really for the coaching staffs? They will tell you it is a huge advantage because actually the Chicago Bears just posted a video on Twitter of in the meeting room where the special teams coordinator was working with some of the players on special teams. Not only, so every coach in staff, personnel staff is here. Well, not the Falcons and Patriots coaches, but they send their scouts here. The other 30 teams, pretty much their whole coaching staffs are here. Coordinators, assistants, head coaches, everyone. And they're watching this stuff. But they're only watching on the field, and they get 15-minute interviews with the players. That's it. The Bears and the Browns actually get to sit with these guys in meeting rooms, prepare for practice, prepare for the game, go through the playbook. They get to see how these guys respond to coaching, and a lot of extra intangible stuff. Year after year, I know, Detroit coached in 2013. They took 3 guys, including Ziggy Ansah. Last year, the Cowboys coached. Dak Prescott wasn't on the team they coached, but they got very familiar with him, certainly. Every year, the teams that coach, they love being able to coach. They get to know these guys very well and expect the Bears and Browns to maybe take 1 or 2 guys from the teams they coach just because they know them so well. So I remember the Vikings took Harrison Smith when they were here, and we all know what he's turned out to be for that Vikings secondary. So certainly those teams help, and those teams are coaching because they need the most help. Obviously, Hugh Jackson and the Browns, John Fox and the Bears hold the number 1 and number 3 pick respectively. So those are things. Desmond King, so the idea about whether or not he should move to safety. Arthur, you wrote about this yesterday.
Yep.
I knew Desmond King in college for his speed, and there was a little bit of a knock on some of his plays yesterday. What you got a chance to talk to him? What did you observe?
Yeah, I think Desmond King about 5'10", 200. I think he came in at, which is adequate size. It's not the outstanding corner size that a lot of teams are looking for now, but I think that speed may be the reason that he actually would be a candidate to move to safety. He's the guy who was beat off the line by Zay Jones yesterday. And that's going to happen to everyone. It's not a big deal, but he's known for his physicality, for his tackling, for his ability to press at the line of scrimmage. So he said that he has talked to plenty of teams about playing both corner and safety, and that he is embracing both possibilities. And again, I think it's that tackling ability and his willingness to kind of stick his nose in, and maybe the lack of long speed. After he was beat off the line by Jones, it was just a straight 9 route, and you didn't see the kind of typical recovery speed that some of these corners need down the field. So we don't obviously know what he's going to run yet. We won't find that out until the combine, but that may be a big determinant in where he ends up playing. A couple other interesting corners down here too, and some undersized guys out of Michigan, although I guess actually ended up measuring at 5'10" as well. I don't know if it's Jordan or Jordan. It's spelled a little bit differently, but whatever it is, Jordan Lewis is an impressive guy. Had the remarkable interception in the bowl game, and has shown the ability to work inside and outside. I know that's going to be big. Particularly with this Bears staff, is asking their guys to work all over the field and try and find out what the best home is going to be for them.
And speaking of Jordan Lewis, and yesterday was measurement day for these guys, he checked in at 5'10" even, which for him was actually pretty good, because if you're if you're 5'9", you want to play corner in the NFL, that's going to be tough. So for him to check in at 5'10" was important for NFL teams. By the way, let's talk about how weird the weigh-in is. It's so weird. You're just in this giant auditorium. These players walk across the stage, and they step on a scale. They get height and weight. It gets called out, and like everybody writes it down. It's very weird. I feel like there's a better way for them to go about doing that. That's not public-ish, but you gotta know what these guys' heights and weights are. So I get it. It's just kind of
I don't know how long they've been doing that for everyone to observe, or if that's a newer thing. Because I know, and there's a piece up on our website right now by Greg Gabriel, sort of tracking the history or the process and changes throughout the All-Star Game's history. And he mentioned that they did add an extra day to the Senior Bowl, and that was the time to do the weigh-ins and everything. But yes, it's definitely very awkward. The weigh-in all-stars were the Villanova defensive lineman, who was 6'7" and had like the longest wingspan you've ever seen. I don't think it really translated on the field. I didn't notice him a ton. It's not exactly the highlight. It's the highlight in terms of awkwardness, but certainly getting out on the field and watching these guys practice, and some of the unique opportunities we get to talk with them one-on-one last night at Media Night was awesome. That, to me, is what separates this event from the Combine, which is just a total whirlwind, where you do have a lot of interview opportunities, but you're not watching the practice. You have the same access as everyone at home watching on TV.
And I think also what separates this is these guys are preparing for an actual game. Like, they're actually doing football stuff on the field, as opposed to just being, what they call it, the underwear Olympics or the Combine, where they're just doing all these drills. They're guys that actually play football. For those of you who maybe are going to watch NFL Network during the week and watch practices, we'll kind of wrap up with this. Arthur, what are some of the drills and things folks should really kind of keep an eye on as they're watching some of the stuff in Mobile?
I think the one-on-one stuff is definitely the most interesting. I think it tends to be the most competitive, whether you're talking about receivers versus corners or in the trenches. That's where the intensity is the highest, and you can get a pretty good idea of who's winning which battles. So that's definitely one thing I'll be keeping an eye on. And I just think more than anything, it's just interesting to observe as much as you can the coach-player interactions. And I guess here in Mobile, we have a better opportunity to kind of actually hear some of the messages that are relayed. But I don't know. I think that kind of leads the list for me anyway.
Yeah, I would say the same thing too, is those one-on-one drills, especially offensive, defensive linemen, cornerbacks, wide receivers. And that gives you a good sense of the quarterback and seeing how they can beat some of those one-on-one drills. So keep an eye on that. And if you watch the game on Saturday, just remember, people don't always remember who the best players were in these Senior Bowl games. It certainly helps, but the coaches are much more focused on practice. Most people leave Mobile, Alabama before the game.
Right.
There's only a handful of scouts that stay for the actual game. They're more interested in what happens in practice this week. So you're welcome to still watch the game on Saturday. Just don't think necessarily you're going to get a ton out of it.
And one last note, and I know that NFL scouts feel very strongly about this, you can You can help your stock Senior Bowl week, but it's kind of hard to hurt your stock unless you have an injury issue or unless you have serious red flags that come up during the interview process. Teams have already been doing a ton of intel on these kids, so it's an opportunity to get one-on-ones and all that good stuff, but you don't really hurt your stock by struggling throughout a week of practice so much as, again, whether it's injuries or you didn't measure as expected or you tell weird things to teams about your past, and trust me, you don't have to do a lot of digging on that. These teams have already done that, and they'll come right up to you and say, all right, so I want to hear the worst skeleton in your closet. You better tell me because I already know. I just want to hear it out of your mouth.
So, yeah, that'll do it for us here for our Facebook Live. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the questions. And stick to ProFootballWeekly.com for all the best coverage from Mobile.